I would like you all to look at me and think to yourselves, what's different? Well, you're right. Unlike anyone else in the room, I'm not wearing any shoes. One moment, please. I want to talk to you about how we see challenges. In elementary school, I was challenged with tying my shoelaces. I watched as my teacher demonstrated with her hands, but once my feet were inside the shoe, I knew that the regular method wouldn't work for me. So I took my feet out of the shoes, took one shoe in front of me at a time, took the laces between my toes, over and through, and pull to tighten. One loop, over, through, and pull to tighten. I want you to look at me again and understand that I'm not different. Just like everyone else here, I have what some may consider a disadvantage. In case you haven't noticed, I was born without arms. Yet, while my disadvantage can be easily spotted, everyone has a disadvantage. Some people are born poor. Some lose their sight. Some come from broken families. Some conflict zones. Others face addiction. Many suffer from illness. What's your disadvantage? Our world certainly doesn't cater to each and every one of us and our differences. Discrimination is widespread and prejudice endemic. Under the burden of our disadvantages, we often turn to pity. We pity others for their differences and ourselves for our struggles. I grew up in a world built for someone with arms, and it has taught me that pity prevents progress. Had I pitied myself, I would have never tied my shoelaces, learned how to swim, won Taekwondo tournaments, driven a car, or flown a plane. In case you don't believe me, here's a quick video. Thank you. Disadvantages should never be met with pity. A disadvantage is unquestionably a challenge, but within the challenge lies the opportunity for empowerment and growth. In my family, I was never told, "You can't." I was taught to see challenges as opportunities. It was ingrained in me by my parents. I was the daredevil of the family. Even when you told me not to do something, I did it anyway. I jumped into the swimming pool in our backyard and learned how to swim. I could thread a needle and write my name with my foot at the age of 3. I was a limitless child that just didn't stop at anything. Even when they told me that I couldn't jump off the 12-foot-tall diving board at the public swimming pool, I snuck up there and did it anyway. It angered me when I was told that I couldn't do the things that other children could do, that I was pitied. The more people told me you can't, the more I wanted to prove I can. When I was 3 years old, I was brought to a hospital and fitted with prosthetic arms. I already had my feet and can do everything in my own way. My brain was wired to my feet in the same way your brains are wired to your hands. But now I was being taught how to use prosthetic arms. I was learning how to write with them. I was learning how to eat with them. It took countless hours. I often wondered, Why do I have to learn how to use these if I'm already so capable with my feet? But it was expected of me by those who assumed they knew what was best for me. They believed in giving me the option of prosthetic arms. It would help me function better in the world, because for many, prosthetics are incredibly beneficial. So I wore the prosthetic arms to school every day, except for the days when there was a mechanical problem. On those few days, I felt like I'd been given a break. Secretly, I was celebrating as I enjoyed the freedom. The arms were hot, heavy, and they didn't even match my skin tone. I hated those arms. I felt they were a barrier that kept me separated from others. I was called names like Robot Girl and Captain Hook. I became withdrawn and lonely. But I did what was expected of me and persistently played the part for 11 years. It wasn't until my family made a move from our small town to a large city that I had the opportunity to start afresh. I was 14 years old, and it was the beginning of 8th grade. The new city brought about new beginnings for me. A new city, a new school, new people, the first time riding the school bus, the first time being allowed to shave my legs. I had a newfound independence. I was old enough now to assess the motivations for wearing the arms. Who was I wearing them for? Was it serving me or serving other people? Why was I conforming? I was at a crossroad and made the most important decision in my life up to that point. For the first time, I walked to school without the prosthetic arms on. I remember very vividly walking to the first day of 8th grade and walking up to the bus, feeling lighter, freer, and more empowered than I'd ever felt before. For the very first time in my life, I was going to be the person God created me to be. And as I walked on the bus, I could hear in my head the famous quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that my mother used to tell me. No one can make you feel inferior without your permission. At that moment, I determined I would never give that permission to anyone. I would confidently face the inevitable stares, comments, and bullying that would come as a result of my difference. And as those bus doors shut, I promised myself I would never again wear them. To this day, they remain in the closet. On that bus, I was undoubtedly not the only teenager standing at a crossroad. Most teenagers and people ask themselves whether their behavior is in their best interest, whether by not conforming they are harming themselves, whether they should try to be themselves or fit in. I realized that I didn't have to be someone for other people anymore, that I didn't have to wear the prosthetic arms. I was in charge of my own life. I embraced my difference and discarded the notion that as my authentic self, I am not whole. Societal conventions cause many to lose their sense of self in the pursuit of fitting in. However, it is only when we are true to ourselves that we are able to overcome our challenges and experience the growth that comes with it. So like I did in 8th grade, I challenge you to take off your fake arms or whatever it is that is holding you back from being true to yourself. And instead of fitting into society, add to society. Shortly after graduating college, a fighter pilot came up to me and asked if I wanted to go flying. The thought really scared me. All I knew about airplanes is how unsettled I felt the moment I took off on a commercial flight. For as far back as I can remember, I would fervently say a prayer the moment I'd step off the jetway and onto the airplane. I would immediately tense up. It was so bad at times that I'd have to take a pain reliever for the tension headache I would develop during the flight. So why would I want to do something that made me so uncomfortable, that evoked so much fear? Thankfully, my dad a staunch supporter of the I can attitude, answered for me, "She would love to." Surprisingly, that first flight was so invigorating, being at the controls of the airplane instead of riding at the back, that I made the decision I was willing to overcome my greatest fear in order to pursue the goal of becoming a pilot. There were many challenges along the way, as you can imagine. The first of which I encountered the moment I climbed into the cockpit, even before my instructor could turn on the engine. I had to figure out how to buckle myself into the 4-point safety harness. You see, sitting there, I knew that my legs could not reach the buckle. So I had to change my perspective and reach. I stood up in the seat, took the lap belt and weaved it through the shoulder straps and buckled it in place. Then I went over and loosened up the straps as loose as I possibly could, slid my body in the harness, pulled the straps over the left shoulder, the right shoulder, and that lap belt, and I was securely in the harness. To meet the requirements, my training demanded finding 3 airplanes, 3 different flight instructors, 3 states, and numerous hours of study. This training that would normally take someone 6 months turned into 3 years. Yet there was a point in my training when I felt everyone had given up on me, including my instructor, and I questioned whether I'd be able to achieve my pilot certificate. Then I was asked to speak to a 4-year-old girl without arms. She'd become so afraid of the water, she didn't want to put her foot in the swimming pool. I met with her and shared stories about my life. As I talked to her, I could see her eyes light up with a spark of excitement, and I knew that I would find a way, because in my pursuit of flight, I was helping pave the way for others facing challenges. Then finally, my instructor turned to me and said, "Now you can fly the airplane on your own." It was the moment I was waiting for. My instructor gave me one last requirement. He said, "Make sure you can hear me on the radios and stay in communication with me." I tested out the radios and responded, "Loud and clear." I then taxied to the end of the runway, alone in the airplane. Now was the moment. I was ready to take off. The toes of my right foot were wrapped around the yoke. My left foot held onto that throttle, and I powered up the engine, raced down the runway, and I lifted off. I was so focused that it didn't even occur to me that I was flying the airplane alone. Then at 4,000 feet high, it hit me. I did it! I'm flying! And the second thought came into my mind, "Look, Ma, no hands!" My first solo flight was a success. I could hear the chirp of the tires as they touched the solid ground. I climbed out of that cockpit not only as pilot in command of an Air Coupe airplane, but as pilot in command of my life. Tough things happen to all of us in life. It is inevitable. If we allow them, they will divert us off course. But how we react, the choices we make, can keep us on course. It is in our hands or our toes. I have accomplished my dream of becoming a pilot, and yet I have more dreams so many of us share. I'm married to a wonderful husband. Do I still face challenges? Every day I wake up, I am challenged. The Chinese writer Yu Tang once said, "Hope is like a road in the country. There was never a road, but when many people walk on it, the road comes into existence." It is only when we make the connection between our disadvantages and the challenges they pose that we are able to realize the growth that they can yield. If you can see your challenge as an opportunity, you will walk on the road of hope and pave the way for others to do the same. So I ask you all to join me and clap hands. Just kidding. Join me and walk on the road of hope, embracing our differences, and instead of pitying or judging ourselves and those around us, help create the path for our success. Thank you.